Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, X7, the host of Zenrama, the podcast of heroes and monsters. Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite Godzilla movies. That would be Godzilla's Revenge, one of the most misunderstood of Godzilla movies, if not the most misunderstood. Mostly by people who didn't see it at the right age, I suppose. But we'll get into that. Before we get too much further into it, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this movie. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What are your reasons? Let me know what your reasons are in the comments. And if you could, just watch a little longer than usual. There's lots of pictures, so I tried to keep it down, but I can talk about my favorite movies.
Jolt of terror with two of America's most blood-chilling science fiction shockers, Island of the Burning Damned and Godzilla's Revenge. Fighting amongst each other for the conquest of our planet. See the giant spiders spin their web of fear around their enemies. Godzilla's Revenge knows no limit. No end. No stopping. See man's last attempt at saving humanity from destruction. And Godzilla's Revenge. And on the same shot-filled program, Island of the Burning Dam.
So there's our title screen. It's you hear it over the dulcet tones of crime fiction, which is called March of the Monsters in the credits. But I just really like that piece of music. Not that the original one is bad at all, but this movie was released December 20th, 1969. We are going to welcome in the 70s, for better or for worse, with the next one we review, which is also one of my favorite Godzilla movies, so keep that in mind. Running time in Japan was 70 minutes. Running time in the US was 69 minutes. So it is not a long movie, and it's dubbed in, I want to say Glenn, but this says Riley Jackson here, but we know all the voices. So if you can see by the trailer that and the title, it's very misleading, which is sad because it's such a great movie. It's one of the best Crown records. Kunio Miyauchi, who did the Ultra Q and Ultraman soundtracks, and this whole beginning is stock footage from the previous three movies: Son of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster, and Destroy All Monsters. It's really well done and exciting. And there's Minya-san himself. There are not many new shots. There's a couple of scenes of Godzilla and Gabra, of course, fighting, but there's our stars, and of course, Supervisor, and directed by Ichiro Honda, who would not return to direct a Godzilla movie until '75's Terror of Mechagodzilla, or whatever you want to call it at that point in time. That's got a long and torturous history. But the cast is great. The dubbing's well done, and it's a good movie. But it's not it's a good children's fantasy movie. I wouldn't say it's very good. It's not a typical Godzilla movie, which is you need to do sometimes. So it starts out in smoggy old Tokyo of 1969. There we see our hero in the yellow cap being bullied by Gabra in his red shirt and his blue cap. And he sees this car, and there's his friend. Let's see, where is what's her little name there? Sachiko. So he asks her if she likes things like that, and she just walks off. And his response is, "Girls, been there, done that." More smog. There's his dad, who's played by Kenji Sahara. We all know him, and he's works on a train. Obviously, he's a train engineer, or and slows down enough to talk to his kids. So apparently, schedules aren't such a big deal in here. Ichiro finds a broken radio tube, and Sachiko, who's the voice of reason, the Hobbes to Ichiro's Calvin, tells him he shouldn't play with that. It's dirty. Uh, um, Kenichi, his dad, has a heart to heart with his coworker about, "Is your kid all right?" It's like, "Yeah, he's all right, but he's lonely," and he is. But he's got at least one friend, Sachiko. And they see this in the headline and 50 million yen, and that's what he calls earning it the hard way, I suppose. There's the old tenement building where we turns out the inept gang of bank robber who could steal.
These uniforms suck. Bart, where do you pick up words like that?
Yeah, Mo, that team sure did suck last night. They just plain sucked. I've seen teams suck before, but they were the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked.
Homer, watch your mouth.
I gotta go. My damn wiener kids are listening.
Sachiko's mother comes by and tells Ichiro not to play in there, so we can see where Sachiko gets her, officiousness. Anyway, and then Gabber and the bullies show up, and his gang show up and take his broken radio tube, and now we get Ichiro goes home, and we see he's in this tenement building, and that's toy maker Minami, who is played by, of all things, Hideo Amamoto, or as he was known then, Eisei Amamoto, and who would later become Dr. Shinigami, Dr. Death from in Kamen Rider, and would reprise that role several more times. He's also Doctor Who, not the Doctor, but Doctor Who in King Kong Escapes, which we have not. We haven't got to that yet, and that's another movie I love. So he kind of looks after Ichiro since he works from home, and he's building this gigantic computer, and it's showing you, oh, it's the moon base from Destroyer, and from 30 years in the future, in the year 1999, and it's got a cat on it. Ichiro says you should put all the sounds of the monsters in it, but look at all these toys back here that he's made. And I mean, how do you mass reproduce something that size? But he burns himself and makes a noise. Then we get mom's note, a note from mother here on the blackboard, and it's dubbed over. They don't even try to bother. I mean, I'm assuming the filmmakers knew this was. We think this was a Japanese movie, and they just dubbed what she said. There's some, I'll be late. Or I'll be home soon. Have a snack. And look, I don't know what he's eating there, but it's gigantic. So he turns on the television. He can't find anything to watch. It's all soap operas and mush. Then he goes to get his own homemade computer, which has got real dials and drawn-on dials and all this stuff in the back. And he plugs it in. And he wants to go to Monster Island. It's got an antenna, so it's on. Who knows where that juice is going? Maybe just to make the beeping noises. But now, when I was a kid, you only saw full screen. This was only on television, so you'd see stuff like this. So I wasn't quite sure. I didn't realize that it was a dream sequence. I mean, obviously, but I was only 8, and things were different in the 70s. So he gets to Monster Island. Somehow he lands, and there's Godzilla in battle with Kamacuras, which is what Ichiro calls the giant mantis. So knew that name was correct. And they're just pummeling the puppets around, and he breathes fire. But then he has to run from one of them, and he calls him, it sounds like he says Borosaurus or Brosaurus. Brosaurus, dude. But it's Gorosaurus. And climbs a tree, sees Manda, Anguillas, and Daikondo, which he just says, "Guy, look at that." And that is just a short-lived fight here and there. So Godzilla's changed face twice. Now, one of the one of the reasons people say they don't like it, the wiener kids, is because Godzilla's features change in a dream. I mean, that's standard for dream time as far as my dreams go. People change constantly in your dreams. They can be one person 1 second and one person, a different person the next. So Godzilla's features changing. And he's obviously, Ichiro has watched these movies because he knows who Godzilla is and knows who Minya is, and he's a fan. So, I mean, this also makes sense. They wouldn't have been on television, but he'd have been old enough to see him in the theater, especially the last three. If he's 8 or 9, there it goes down. Then a new shot of the, well, this isn't new, but Ichiro falls into a hole, falls, lands, and he only hurts his bottom a little bit. But he looks up, and there is a new shot of the one of the puppets. One, I assume they didn't burn. Suddenly, and so Ichiro's a game kid. He just starts climbing up. I gotta get out of the hole. No one else is here. But a rope is let down, or a vine, and they pull him up, and he climbs up, and then we see Minya. Just feeling sorry because I got no friends. Feeling sorry for myself because I got no friends. So they become fast friends. No, and then the monster Gabra shows up, who looks like nothing like any Toho monster before or after, really, because he's kind of an ogre, and there might be a yokai or some kind of obaki like that that's smaller, but this is a very unique monster for a Godzilla movie. Um, he's never been back before or since, which makes sense. I think in some manga he's been around, but if anyone knows, they can let me know in the comments. But good looking suit. He's kind of dopey looking, but he's a bully. Minya's scared of him, and then the phone rings and wakes Ichiro up. It's mom saying I'm going to be late because somebody called out sick. I think she works in a cleaning shop. The police are still looking for the thieves, and then so Minami goes and wakes Ichiro up, and he tries to go back to sleep. And now we're at the next day. So there's Gabra who wants to. I don't even know. It's not. They were just fishing or something, and he didn't even threaten Ichiro, but I would assume he has in the past. Ichiro, in the dubbing, he says he's a big kid who teases, which may or may not be. But he makes him give him his stuff. He's like Mo the bully. Once more, Ichiro being a Calvin. Does that make Minya Hobbs? But he goes into the tenement building, finds two radio tubes that aren't broken, and then he starts to explore. He's a brave kid, and he's pretty smart, but he's a dumb kid right now. And then the gang shows up, but the cops distract him, and they run off to see what they're chasing. He finds this pair of headsets. I mean, what the hell is in this building? And a mysterious operator's license, a driving license. And there is Stanley and Ollie, the thieves. Let's see, did we have them? I think one of them gets called Roy, but no, I never know what they're. But we're going to call them Stanley and Ollie. They see Ichiro leaving, and Stanley there takes a drink out of his flask. Ichiro's playing on a car, and this is Minami's friend. This is the guy, probably the landlord or something, who's selling this car because he tells Ichiro to shoo. So it's Minami's car, and he's trying to sell it. And let's see. Yeah. But then Ollie sees where Ichiro lives because he's taking it in something from the outside. They're having dinner. He's like, my mom's not going to be here. So he must have gone out. This must not have been the next day. He must have just gone out to play for a while and go explore an empty tenement building. Who's this? He's a latchkey kid before there were latchkey kids, which was, became prominent when I was 9, 10, and 11 in the 70s. But look at all the toys there. And the police come by. They're looking for the thieves. Now Ichiro falls back asleep and immediately goes back to Monster Island. And now he's got his headset on, though. So the battle begins. And again, this is a movie for 70 minutes, 69 minutes. It's action-packed. Even when they're and the characters are engaging, so that's one of the reasons I liked it. Now, Minya was comical, and his smoke rings don't do anything but probably just singe Gabber a little bit. But he tries to fight, so he's a little guy, but he's still sticking up for himself. Bombers show up, but he runs away eventually. The bombers show up, courtesy again of Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, and we see that. I love this shot too. That's really a nice looking shot. And they're cheering. They're cheering. I mean, we don't know where the jets are from now. They were from the Red Bamboo in Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, but these two, well, Ichiro would know that. I mean, so now we get to the scene where they remake from Son of Godzilla. Not exactly scene for shot, but since it was two different directors, Honda redid this one. Godzilla Minya must learn from his father, like I do. I've seen the movie a few times. So God's trying to get him to, you know, learn to use his atomic breath. And this is friends. Friends laugh at friends. I mean, you can tell. And he stomps on his tail, which we just thought was hilarious because it worked. I mean, I saw this with my brother, and he had a sleepover, and one of his friends, and it was an exciting evening because Godzilla movie that we hadn't seen. We didn't know about production dates, release dates, or anything theatrical. It was just going to be on television. Channel 2, sci fi flicks. Got scared by an episode of The Outer Limits and then wowed by this. And Gabra was a bit fearsome. I mean, you get sucked into the movie and it works really well. If you're 8 and 7 years old, I wonder if my brother's watched this since then. I'll have to ask him sometime. And now they wave at me, or they wave it to the audience, but they really are. We know they're waving to Ichiro. And then suddenly a plant comes to life and grabs him, but it's not a plant. It's Stanley and Ollie there. He says, if you don't be quiet, you'll get this. So there's some threats to little kids. I mean, he cries. He asks him if he stands a jerk. But now Minami's out there talking to the detectives, having some sake probably. And Ichiro falls back asleep because, there's a haven there with the monsters. Wakes up to Minya fighting Gabra again. Now we get to see Gabra's cool power. They say it's rotoscoped, but it's just animated. I mean, it's not rotoscoping if it's just being. I mean, Tsuburaya and Toho, they had the best animated rays and beams, just different ones of all kinds, of wide variety. It was never just the same zap, 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 electrical lightning. It was always something. This is cool, but it's blue, and it's he's got even where the hand touches him, and it goes up his arm. I mean, just the animation is. I've always loved Toho's animation, and most any Japanese. Well, Toho did set the bar, which wouldn't be equal till the late '70s by Toei, who did have their own animation department. So go figure. Ichiro has super strength in his dreams and drops a rock down, lands on Minya's tail, and he blasts Gabra right in the face. Now that stung because he's like, nah, nah, nah. But he's still chasing him, and Minya's like, ah. And Godzilla kicks him and tells him to get back in the fight. He's like, you don't get to, no, we're not doing this. And Minya goes back to fight him and gets zapped again, and Godzilla blasts Gabra and says, don't use your power. He gets chomped. Remember this. And then he says, all right. And Ichiro's like, I got an idea. There's a log here, and Gabra is just dumb enough to step on it. See? Down he goes, changing size. Again, something that happens often in dreams. Anyone who studied dreams will know this. And round he goes, and he belly flops on the ground. Kaboom! Godzilla's super happy. And then Gabra has a slight error in judgment and attacks Godzilla. So another fight scene, and this is the final monster sequence in the movie. And look at him. He's like, my hero's beating up my bully. And he tries to use the electricity on him, but I believe Godzilla gives him the old double head clap behind the ears. And judo flip. That Gabra has lost again. And off he goes. And then Godzilla's about to reach down, and Ichiro's suddenly like, I'm your friend, don't hurt me. But then he wakes up. And he's like, what's he saying? And then he finally says, I'm not, and he's struggling, and they can't get the car to work. And Godzilla says, we must fight our own battles. So off he goes, gets out, and it gives him the old runaround. So these two inept burglars, anyone who's seen Home Alone, uh, a lot of this is very similar. He's already set up a trap for Stan, and he bites him as well. And so this is intercut with with some monster footage, which is also a very interesting style choice, and I like it. I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of the movie. And so Stanley and Ollie are looking for him. And he does a dumb, but that's all right. Then Minami sees the car that they've stolen. And he's like, "This is my car. This is not my money. This is not my. This is my beautiful car. This is not my beautiful money." But it's and once in a lifetime. Now, previously, Ichiro had covered this hole up, and Ollie falls through it and probably breaks his leg. Because, ouch. Now, Stan's had enough, and he's going to knife the kid. But there's where he's intercut with the bully, the blasting, and he grabs a fire extinguisher in the tenement building, still active. I mean, that's just danger right there. He runs out. The cops show up. And Minami's like, this is my car. And then he runs out, and they've got guns. They're ready to shoot him. Now, Ichiro's safe. He's there with Minami. And then they catch Ollie. And now you'd think if there's a reward, I mean, their family is now set, at least for another couple years. There's nobody home. And his mom's there the next morning, and they're idyllic. And I think she senses something's changed a little bit in her son because he was able to handle himself. Look at that television. But just very traditional here. And she's like, little boy's growing up, because she cries. And I didn't understand why she would be crying, because he's safe, but she felt bad, leaving him alone. He got kidnapped, and he was able to get out of it all on his own without her. So she got like a triple whammy. I mean, this movie has depth. The reporters come by, and instead of asking him, should we use nuclear weapons on Gabra, they want to know how he got through it. He's like, I wasn't alone. Minya was with me. And Minami has to tell him who Minya is, because apparently they don't watch monster movies. Minya is the son of Godzilla. And there's Gabra. So we're about to have the final showdown, and possibly the most misunderstood scene in the movie. He's like, get out of my way, Gabra. I'm not putting up with your nonsense. So they have a brief fight, which is also intercut with some of the monster footage. And he just knocks him down, and he's like, all right. I did not mention this earlier. So he's rubbing his arm. So he's hurt a little bit. And Sachiko's there, and he goes off. Gabra had told Ichiro he'd give him his tube back if he went and honked the motorcycle. This guy's motorcycle there. And he's painting a sign. He's been painting the sign for at least 2 days. He's not very good at his job. And he honks it, and the guy freaks out and falls over. Instead of saying, just stop. Okay, you're done. Go away. He gets all bent out of shape. Ichiro wasn't hurting the motorcycle. So he gets down, he falls over. Now this should have hurt. Probably knocked him out. But he gets paint on him. Everyone laughs, including Sachiko, who's not as much of a stick in the mud as she pretends to be, because her mom's not around. So they're all like, cool, yay. And then he goes and confesses to his father. He says, whatever that guy did, I did. Now, if he was going to be a delinquent or another bully, he wouldn't have done that. He just ran off and not told his dad. He said, no, I did it. So his dad's like, all right, go.
We'll be right back for another exciting adventure with Superman.